As a recruiter, a big part of the work I do is working alongside candidates land their dream roles. Okay. And in order for them to land a dream role, they need to be moving on from where they currently are. Okay. And in this episode, I thought I would talk a little bit about some reasons why you may want to move on from your current company, just based on some of the most popular things that the candidates that I work with tell me why they're looking to move on from their current situation. And maybe this can help you with that next step in your career. Okay. So, reason number one just comes down to a lack of support. Okay, a lot of the reasons why people do want to move on from their current companies is they just feel a lack of support. Okay, they feel like there is a lack of a system that can actually help them go from level one to level two. Okay, this lack of support is pivotal, and to be honest, it usually is noticeable from day one. Okay, what I've noticed is with a lot of candidates that say they have a lack of support in their current environment, they usually say that it was from their onboarding experience, like from day one. Do you know what I mean? Like from day one, what they were told was going to happen didn't happen. And sometimes people were going into these jobs and, starting these first few weeks and not being taught anything and then just eventually being thrown into the deep end and expecting magic to happen. Okay. This is obviously not the best environment for you to be in, particularly if you are new to the job or new to the industry in general. You need a good structured pathway. Okay. Without this, you're doomed to fail. Okay. Yes, you can go and you can make it work, sink or swim, and you can fluke a couple results. But at the end of the day, if you don't understand the inherent process and how you're going to go towards getting your right outcomes and getting the correct outcomes, you're not going to go anywhere in the long run. It's going to be a lot harder to sustain. And I find a lot of companies, they don't actually take that time to go through a proper onboarding process and help the new employee understand what to do, what not to do, when to do things, etc., etc. So that's a big thing. Is first things first, just having that lack of support and feeling almost isolated in the job, in the work that they do. Okay. My second point with the lack of support comes down to the fact that a lot of these people, they didn't feel like they could ask questions. They didn't feel like they were in an environment to actually learn and to grow. And if they ever got stuck, they never felt that comfort of somebody around them helping them. It felt very individualistic, which is not bad. And at the end of the day, that suits some people. But I always think, regardless of how good or how bad you are as a candidate, you need a good onboarding process, because at the end of the day, you're going to be in this job for 40 hours a week. You need to understand what works, what doesn't work, how to do things, how to not do things, etc. Now, I'm not saying you need to be shadowed every 2 minutes of the day. I'm not saying that people should be taking time out of their days to sit next to you and baby you throughout the whole process. I'm not saying that either. But there should be that effective onboarding process, and there should be that correct support system that is in place at all times, so employees and these people of all levels, whether they're junior, mid-tier, senior, etc., they feel supported at all times, whether they're entering a new environment or they're in an established environment, but they're taking on a new project, taking on a new workload, etc., etc. They need to feel that support at all times, and a lack of feeling of this is only going to drive a candidate to move on to that next stage in their career and look for something better with a better support system, as well as that actual ability to learn and to grow, and that ability to ask questions, because at the end of the day, you can't improve if you don't learn, and you don't learn if you don't ask. And if you don't feel confident, you feel like you're going to be judged, you feel like you're going to be ridiculed for asking questions, that's not the environment you want to be in. Okay, so that is something that you should be considering, and something that if that that's not in place, and you feel almost intimidated to ask questions, and you do quite feel on your own, you may need to start looking for a new job. Okay. Secondly, it comes down to a lack of goals. Okay, so this doesn't mean that necessarily from your perspective, if you rock up to work and you don't have your own like little targets that you set yourself. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like the fact that if your company doesn't really have like KPIs for yourself, or doesn't really have like specific targets that you have to meet, or just doesn't have something that you can work towards, it's going to affect your drive. Consciously, subconsciously, whatever it is, it's going to affect your drive. You're going to go into work every day just kind of half-assing it, and at the end of the day, you're not going to have that same drive as somebody who knows what they have to do by the end of the month to get to that next level. you know. I think with a lack of goals as well, that also ties into the fact of like almost like a lack of a progression plan, you know. I feel like companies should always entice employees with a progression plan, because at the end of the day, people are inherently ambitious. People inherently want to go up to the next level. There's a real reason why so many people love to play video games, is we're obsessed with the idea of leveling up. We're obsessed with that idea of going on and moving on to the next thing. You know what I mean? Video games have kind of killed that, you know, inherent drive to do that in person. But subconsciously, all humans have a real drive to always improve and to always do something better. There's a real reason why nowadays, you know, there's such an obsession with fitness and the gym culture, because again, you're almost like you're customizing your own character. You're building and you're growing, and you know, every single thing you do, it leads to success down the track. So I feel like we tie this back into the workplace. If you don't have an end goal, you don't know where you want to be in 3 months, you don't know where you want to be in 6 months, 9 months, etc. Even if you love the work you do on a day to day, it's going to feel very repetitive, and you're not going to have that same drive as the guy who's there, who knows what he needs to do by the end of the 3 months, because he knows that if he does that, he'll get a nice promotion. You know, the type of environment you want to be in is a company that's going to push you and support you, and a company that's going to get you to keep working towards trying to become that best version of yourself, because they believe in you and they want to give you more opportunity down the track. You know, so if you're kind of in an environment where, you know, you don't really feel like you actually know what you're working towards, or you know what you want to work towards, you know what job title you want to have, but that just hasn't been discussed with you, and you don't actually have targets. So again, in 6 months time, when you want that promotion, when you want that next exciting thing, you've got nothing to show for it. Maybe this is your sign to start looking elsewhere as well, or just have a conversation with your current boss and just be like, hey, like, where do I sit with things at the moment? What are you expecting from me if I want to deliver and I want to achieve X, Y, and Z? You know what I mean? Just have those conversations, have those thoughts, and just think about realistically where you want to be in 6 months or so, or a year's time, or 2 years' time. And just think, you know, is that really objectively achievable where you are? You know? So that's my second reason. Number 3, you dread going into work. Okay? This is the most important one, I would say. I think they're all incredibly important, but I think this one actually goes down to the physical output that you're going to put in, but also the mental side of things. Okay? I feel like if you're going into work and you are genuinely dreading it, and don't get me wrong, all right? Do not get me wrong. People, you're going to have good days, you're going to have bad days at work. Very normal. Okay? I love recruitment. There are some days where I'm going into work and I'm like, oh, I don't want to go in today. But that's not because I hate the environment. It's not because I hate the people I work with. It's just one of those things. It's like, okay, it's another day of work. All right? You're going to have that in everything you do. Even if you have your absolute dream job, there's going to be some days where you just don't want to go. Okay? But what you don't want to have is that feeling every single day, and nothing to do with the actual work you do, you know, to do with your environment. You know, if you feel like you're genuinely dreading going into work, okay, you genuinely dread that idea of going into work, seeing your boss, seeing some colleagues or whatever, you got to get out of there. Okay, it is not healthy. All right, I've been in that situation before where I almost just felt like uncomfortable going into work. You don't want that, because at the end of the day, Monday to Friday just feels like the longest thing ever. And then you genuinely start living for the weekend, which is like the one thing all of us want to avoid doing. Okay? Yes, the weekend's great. You get 2 days off. Amazing. All right? Yes, doing nothing or just being with your friends or being with your family is obviously going to be more fun than, you know, working 9 to 5 and everything like that. I get all of that. But you don't want to be that guy who's actually like actively just looking forward to 2 days of the week. And then by the time Sunday hits or Sunday afternoon hits, you're miserable again. You don't want that. You need to get out of that environment ASAP. I promise you, there is light at the end of the tunnel. Okay? If you start looking elsewhere, you know, you start finding jobs that align with you better, you know, you work in a new environment, you work around people that are like-minded, you are going to be happier, and work is going to feel a lot more effortless. And then with that effortless feeling of work, you can actually put in better work, and you're going to deliver better results, and you're going to be more successful down the track. Okay? Rather than like literally say your work starts at 8:30, it's literally 6 a.m. that day. You've woken up, you're ready to go into work, and you're already in a negative mindset. That's not healthy, you know, and you do that on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You do that next week, the week after. You're just going to become miserable, okay? And you do not want that, Okay, so if you're going into work and you're genuinely dreading your environment, you're genuinely dreading what you have to do, like if you're almost physically sick in what you have to do, okay, get out of there. It is not worth it. All right. I'm not going to say to you, quit the job on the spot. I don't want to be responsible for that if things don't work out in the long run. But genuinely start creating an exit plan. It is so important that you go out there and you find an environment that's best for you. It's not so much about finding a job that's going to, be perfect. There's no such thing as a perfect job. Okay, you can have good days, you can have bad days in everything you do. But what's important is the environment you're in. Do you feel supported? Do you have good work friends? Do you feel happy? Do you feel like what you're doing, you're more fulfilled? Do you feel comfortable? You know what I mean? Do you feel comfortable in learning and asking questions, etc., etc.? This is what's important, okay? These are things that, you need to be factoring in with that next step in your career. Really sit back and analyze, what's going wrong where you are right now? Why aren't you happy? What are the factors influencing this? And then work out how you can change this moving forward in your next job, okay? I promise you guys, your mental health comes first. Go into work, enjoy your environment, enjoy who you work with, and as a result, you will perform and you will do better. Okay, so if you're going into work and genuinely dreading it, I would genuinely start creating an exit plan ASAP. Okay, hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you guys did and you are interested in working with me on a one-to-one level, click that link below for a free consultation. Happy to organize a 30-minute chat, a little bit more, a little bit less, whatever works. Hope you guys enjoyed this video again. Take care. See you guys next time.